Evening to all our students out there. A very good evening to all our students out there who are preparing for the English language examination, JAMB. This evening, we shall be taking a look at a vital aspect of the English language question in WAEC and JAMB. Now, this aspect is known as idiomatic expressions. It's not unusual for a lot of students in Nigeria to equate idiomatic expressions with proverbs. Now, proverbs are different from idioms. Proverbs are traditional, they are rooted in tradition. They are local, they have a local nuance about them. But idiomatic expressions are actually different from proverbs because in most cases, they are drawn from the Western culture, not primarily from the locale where the expressions are used. So most of the idiomatic expressions, in fact, I dare to say that all of the idiomatic expressions we've used in our schools and in the English language particularly, they are Western extractions. They are not actually for this environment. Now, but there is a similarity between proverbs and idioms. The similarity is that the individual words that make up idioms and proverbs do not actually mean, the meaning derivable from the proverbs and idioms, they are not superficial. They are not made up of the individual words that make up those expressions. For instance, if I say, it is raining cats and dogs, it is raining cats and dogs, that is an idiomatic expression. So literally, it does not mean that the sky is pouring cats and dogs. So it doesn't have a literal or superficial or dictionary meaning. So when I tell somebody it is raining cats and dogs, the person shouldn't expect a downpour of real dogs and real cats. It has a deeper meaning. The meanings are embedded. And so idioms are expressions you learn by heart. You know their meanings through constant usage and through constant exposure to their users by reading books, by listening to good speakers. Now, this evening, we shall be looking at what idioms are. Why do we have to use idioms? Why? When is the use of idioms appropriate? Examples of idiomatic expressions and the application of idiomatic expressions. Having outlined some of our objectives on what idioms, on what idioms we'll be looking at this evening, there are some facts we have to take note as far as idiomatic expressions are concerned. Remember our first point, which is what are idioms? We want to expose ourselves. We want to explore what these idiomatic expressions are. And according to the slide here, we see idioms as a type of informal language. Idioms are a type of informal language. Now, I'm sure that those of us who are writing JAMB, that is the Joint Admissions Matriculations Examination, we must have been used to informal language, particularly in terms of our informal letter writing. I'm sure you must have become conversant with the rule that states that when you're writing an informal letter, you are at liberty to use informal language. And what constitutes an informal language? The use of contractions, the use of proverbs, the use of colloquialisms, the use of slangs, and of course, the use of idiomatic expressions. Why? Because it is expected that as an informal letter writing, you are conversing, you are relating, you are corresponding with somebody you are familiar with, your friend, someone, a very close relative. And that is the reason the use of idioms, for instance, are permissible in this regard. So when we talk about informal language, in essence, we mean a kind of language that you use without strict regard to the formal rules of language. And that is where formal letter differs. I am trying to bring in all this kind of letters so that we can understand what we mean by informal language. When you're writing a letter to your boss, you're writing a letter to the principal, of course, the use of idiomatic expressions are a no-no. They are not acceptable because you don't use such within a formal, within an official, within a business-like ambience or context. So when I'm talking with my friend, I can use an idiomatic expression. When I'm talking with a teacher that I'm very familiar with, that I share a personal relationship with, I can as well use an idiomatic expression. So I believe that this point on the informality of idiomatic expression has been internalized and properly understood. And so this leads us to the next point on idiomatic expressions, which states that idioms are not literal. They are not literal. This means that the meaning of idioms is not derived from the individual words that make up the expression. That takes us to the initial example I gave at the start of this class. When I say, Peter, can't you see it is raining cats and dogs? Of course, Peter does not expect to see real or live dogs and cats falling from the sky. So that is what we mean by idioms are not literal. For example, some of us, when we listen to stories, and they talk about tortoise, they talk about all those animals and all that. Of course, you don't expect that they are actually talking about tortoises for real. Because tortoises cannot talk, they do not have the power of language. So those stories are literal, they are not literal. Their meanings are beyond, the word tortoise. They are beyond the word lion. They are expressing deeper meanings, and those meanings are associative meanings. They are associative meanings. So in essence, when we say something is not literal, it means it should not be taken at face value. It should not be taken at face value. Their meanings have no direct correlation with the words that make up the expression. When I say that, oh, look at this boy, he always blows hot and cold. He always blows hot and cold. That doesn't mean that the boy is hot on one side of his body and on the other side of his body is cold. No, if you interpret it based on the meaning of hot, the dictionary meaning of hot, the dictionary meaning of cold, of course, you will not get the meaning, the import of what I'm trying to convey to you. This is what I mean by idioms are not literal. Now, the third point on idioms that I want to acquaint us with is that idioms are a fixed group of words with a special different meaning from the meanings of the separate words. What do I mean by fixed? That means the words, they are constant. Cats and dogs will never change. Blow hot and cold will never change. When I use the word olive branch, it will never change. I'm giving you the olive branch after all those years of our keeping a cold shoulder from each other. Cold shoulder, olive branch, they will never change. Those words are fixed. And of course, they are not just fixed, they have a fixed meaning, which means the meanings are permanent. Tomorrow, somebody will not wake up someday to say, oh, I have decided to change the meaning of cats and dogs, or it's raining cats and dogs. Oh, I've decided to change the meaning of olive branch. Oh, I've decided to change the meaning of, oh, it talks 9 to the dozen. The meanings are there. They are, so all we need to do is to learn those words. It's just like your phone sounds. Somebody will not wake up someday and decide to change the sound to oh no, it is fixed. So that is what we mean by idioms are a fixed group of words which you need to deliberately and intentionally learn. Not just learn the right words that make up that expression, but as well learn the associative meaning, the associative meaning in which those words are identified with. So we said it has a special different meaning from the meanings of the separate words. Hot and cold does not mean literal hurt, does not mean, oh, this thing is cold. No, it has an entirely different meaning. Okay, now, for instance, we have instances said to spill the beans has nothing to do with beans. Can you imagine? My best friend actually spilled the beans. So somebody who is a conversant with idioms might actually think that, oh, my best friend inadvertently, poured the beans off the pot or from the plate. No, the beans here represents something. It means secret. That means to spill means the person was just free about it. And there was no control, which means to tell something that is supposed to be secret, to tell something like, so you can see here that to spill the beans can only be used by people in an informal setting. It is not literal. It doesn't really mean the beans that we eat, and it is fixed. It will not change to spill the rice tomorrow. And the meaning that is associated with this expression is equally fixed. The meaning will not change overnight tomorrow. So having said that, we move to the next point on idioms. Remember, our first slide actually talked about what we want to do. It says, what are idioms? So we are still talking about idioms. So examples of idiomatic expressions very quickly. We have a bit of pill. We have numerous idiomatic expressions. And you can only acquire this through wide exposure, like I said, by listening to learned speakers, learned users of the English language, like even the native speakers, by reading good books, by reading a lot of storybooks, because storybooks are fictitious and even not fictitious works that make use of those informal languages. So let us acquaint ourselves with a few of these idiomatic expressions. A bitter pill. What is a bitter pill? I want you to look at the interaction of picture with the text. Picture with the text. Of course, a lot of us do not like tablets. We don't like pill. We don't like, medicine. When we have to take medication, we run away from it. So what is a bitter pill? Are they actually saying, my dear, this is actually a bitter pill to swallow? Are they trying to tell the girl that what they're about to give her is actually medication? No. So let us know the meaning associated with the expression a bitter pill. A bitter pill simply means a situation or information that is not pleasant but must be accepted. It is not pleasant. Please, let's take note of the word, of the prefix not. It is unpleasant, but must be accepted. For instance, somebody has to a young has to be transferred to another school. Perhaps he or she has lost one of both parents. And like, oh, Sandra, there is a bitter pill that you need to swallow. And Sandra looks askance and says, Auntie, what do you mean? My dear, what I'm trying to say is that you just have to get a transfer out of your present school to that government school over there, or to that other school over there. And Sandra looks like she will miss all the teachers she has gotten used to, and the fact that she has built a lot of memories around that school. It's going to be a bitter pill for her to swallow. It's a situation or an information that is quite unpleasant, but has she a choice? No, she doesn't have a choice. She must accept the inevitable. That is what we mean by a bitter pill. Now we have another example. Actions speak louder than words. I want you to know that oftentimes, as JAMB bites, permit me to use the word JAMB bites because you're preparing for your JAMB exam. But of course, we know that some of you are not just writing JAMB. Some of you have written WAEC and have passed it. Or some of you are new at JAMB and you want to try, and you are still going to write your WAEC. Oftentimes, your essay questions might end with any of these idiomatic expressions. So I want to use the opportunity to tell you that you please do take this aspect very seriously. Now, actions speak louder than words. What does this mean? People's intentions can be judged better by what they do than what they say. Actions speak louder than words. So when people come to you and tell you, Oh, you know what? I just like that that man. That man is such a gentleman. He speaks so well. He's such a convincing speaker. And then an elderly person looks at you and says, "Go, you know what? Actions speak louder than words." So they are not telling you that what you, as in actually when you walk, your steps talk, or when you cough, your cough says something. No, that is not what they are saying. They're actually saying that the things you do, they don't have mouths to talk. They don't have a way of expressing, but people watch, people observe, and they tell so much about you. So that is what that expression signifies. Now let us quickly run through the rest. A dime a dozen, which means is very common and of no particular value. Now add insults to injury to act in a way that makes a bad or displeasing situation worse. You just call the person stupid. And to add insult to injury, you are now giving that person the dirty slap. That is adding insult to injury. Now I'm all ears, which means, look, I'm listening. I am intent about what you're saying. I'm fully focused and I'm awaiting an explanation. That is all ears. Now backing up the wrong tree means looking in the wrong place, accusing the wrong person. Are you really sure you're not backing up the wrong tree, Lizzie? Which means, are you really sure you're not accusing the wrong person? Are you really sure you're not looking in the wrong direction? Now, another beat around the bush. Beat around the bush simply means avoiding the main issue. Oh, there is a story I want to tell. There is something that happened, 2 days ago. And you begin to talk and talk and talk. The person feels better, like, okay, can you just go straight to the point? Can you cut to the chase? Because you're beating around the bush, which means you are avoiding the main issue. You're not speaking directly about the topic. Can you just tell me the gist? Can you just give me the main issue? Another point, another example is bed of roses. Life sometimes, it's not a bed of roses. Which means it is sometimes it will not be so easy, comfortable, and easy life. Getting admission into university is sometimes not a bed of roses. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not comfortable. And all that. Now, best of both worlds, that is to get all the advantages of two things at the same time. Aren't you lucky, darling? Because you are getting the best of both worlds. Getting from mommy, getting from daddy, you have no care in the world, you're sure are getting the best of both worlds. Now, another example is bite off more than you can chew. Bite off more than you can chew. To take a task that is way too big. That is the meaning of bite off more than you can chew. You are running you are running a master's program and a post. I mean, how do I put it now? And a computer system. You are pursuing your computer studies at the same time with your PGDE. Don't you think you're biting off more than you can chew? That is so. It means to take a task that is way too big because of the short time that you have on your hands. Now we want to call it a day. Can we call this class a day, students? Which means, can we declare the end of this task? Now we have can't judge a book by its cover. Write a story that ends with that illustrates the same. Cannot judge a book by its cover. It just means that write a story that illustrates the fact that you cannot judge something primarily on appearance. That is what it means. So catnap, it means to have a short, light sleep, a dose. Hello, children. You know what? I'm retiring indoors to catch a catnap. I'm retiring indoors to catch a catnap. That is to have a short, light sleep, perhaps a dose. Oh boy, never mind that couch potato. Never mind that couch potato means never mind that lazy person. Cry over spilled milk. It means when you complain about a loss from the past, something spilled milk, you cannot gather it again. Just allow it spill. You leave it there. So, spilled milk represents a situation that cannot be helped. So you don't cry over spilled milk. Having said that, we move to the very next important point about idiomatic expressions. When is the use of idioms appropriate? Okay, why use idioms? When is the use of idioms appropriate? We're going to take this together. Idioms are used, we said it's in our, when we're defining idioms, they are used in informal settings. informal situations, in conversations, to lighten the mood, in an atmosphere where everybody knows everybody, you're relaxed and all that, in a word, in an informal setting, such as in the classroom, at home, in the restroom, in the gym, at the gym, when you are relaxed. So when is the use of idioms appropriate? Definitely, of course, looking at the scenarios or the context of usage, they are appropriate when the matter or the situation is unofficial. And we've looked at examples of idiomatic expressions. On this note, we are going to be looking at the practical application of idioms in sentences, the practical application of idioms in sentences. Now, look at this. We called this from WAEC 2017 in the hope that those of us who are writing JAMB can find this applicable. We're moving from the simple to the complex, perhaps. After each of the following sentences, a list of possible interpretations is given. Choose the interpretation that is most appropriate for each sentence. Like I said in our earliest class, that when they say most appropriate, it means there is a more appropriate option, there is an appropriate option. So it's a choice between good, better, best, or good, better, best. Now, our mother always warns us against washing our dirty linen in public. Now, washing our dirty linen in public is actually the idiomatic expression. So what does this mean? It means she warns us not to discuss private matters in public. That is what it means, not to discuss private matters in public. And of course, you would agree with me that from our earlier discussions, private matters has no direct correlation with dirty linen. It has no direct correlation with dirty linen. So quickly we move to the next question. Let us draw a veil over this matter. Let us draw a veil over this matter. This means that we should do what? We should avoid discussing the matter. We are not saying we should cover our heads with a veil. We're not saying we should take the matter to court. We're not saying we should get the elders to resolve the matter, but let's just cover it. Let's just forget about it. Let's just avoid discussing the matter. So you can see it has nothing to do with a veil. Now, 3, children think their parents are behind the times. This means that they think that their parents are what? Old-fashioned. You would agree with me again that behind the times has no direct correlation with old-fashioned, going by the dictionary meaning. It doesn't mean being late for work all the time. It doesn't mean not worried about new things. It doesn't mean not duty conscious, but being simply old-fashioned. Number 4, ever since that issue came up, I have been sitting on the fence. Does it mean that the speaker is found sitting on the fence as in literally? Of course not. So what does it mean? It means that the speaker has been avoiding stating his opinion. I have been avoiding stating my opinion. I have been sitting on the fence. I am neither here nor there. I'm just neutral. Question number 5, you must square up to your problems. This means that you have to do what? You have to deal with your problems effectively. You have to face your problems. So it has nothing to do with consider. It has nothing to do with forget. It has nothing to do with arrange. Now we move to question number 6. Many of us escaped to the skin of our teeth during the crisis. This means that we narrowly escaped, not quickly escaped, not had marks on our skin, not lost some of our teeth, but narrowly escaped. Question number 7. Peter and Paul get along like a house on fire. This means that they have a very good relationship, are not on speaking terms, avoid each other always, pretend to like each other. When Peter and Paul get along like a house on fire, have a very good relationship. They have a very good relationship. Now, question number 8. When Victor's father gave him a new car, he was at a loss for words. He was lost for words. This means that Victor did not like the car, forgot to show his gratitude, was overwhelmed, was not grateful. No, he was simply overwhelmed. He didn't know what to say. He was overwhelmed. That means he was lost for words. Question number 9. This film is a court above the others. This film is a court above the others. This means that it is cut to look like the others, much better than the others, different from the others, inferior to the others, not at all. It simply means that it's much better than the others. Question number 10. We knew our father was talking tongue in cheek when he spoke of a vacation abroad. Does it mean that daddy actually had his tongue, perhaps raised his tongue to the top of his mouth, to his phallic position? No, this means that our father was what? He was simply joking. He wasn't sincere about what he was saying. He wasn't courageous. It has nothing to do with being courageous. It has nothing to do with being reasonable, but the fact that he wasn't really wasn't really so serious about it. It was simply joking. That leads us to JAMB 2018 for our JAMB bite, which is the real purpose of our revision tonight. Having looked at the questions from WAEC perspective, I'm sure we'll be ready to apply what we have learned so far to the requirements of the Joint Admissions Matriculations Board English Language 2018. From the following questions 16 to 25, select the option. Select the option, okay, that best explains the information in the sentence. One of the referees shall sign here. Now, there is a different application here. In a sense, the questions in JAMB are not exactly idiomatic expressions. Rather, they test our critical thinking skills. One of the referees shall sign here has nothing to do with idioms. Sign is sign. So a divergence from the questions we considered from WAEC, they are perfectly idiomatic expressions. But when we look at JAMB, it is a combination of idiomatic expressions and a test of our critical thinking skills. So let's get going. One of the referees shall sign here. What does this mean? What does this imply? What is the speaker actually saying? Is this trying to say that it is desirable that one of the referees signs here? It is reasonable that one of the referees signs here. It is obligatory or it is advisable. One of the referees shall sign here is obligatory. It is obligatory. That is, he just has to. It's a requirement. It is not advisable, because when it's advisable, we are only making a suggestion, reasonable suggestion, desirable suggestion. But obligatory means that it is not optional. Question number 12. There is no written law on these issues. The rector will rely on the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb, of course, you will agree that this is clearly an idiomatic expression. But the good thing about the sentence is that we've been given a contextual framework. Look at the prior sentence, the first part of the sentence, that is the main clause. The other part is also a main clause. There is no written law on these issues. That means it's unwritten. It is an unconscious one. But the rector will rely on the rule of thumb, which means that the rector will rely on the information received, rely on his position, rely on shared sentiment, rely on his experience. He will rely on his experience. Now, question number 13. The principal opens the letter in error. Opens the letter in error. This is not an idiomatic expression, because what is the words that make up the expression can be taken for what they really are. Now, what is the answer? It was wrong, but he intended to do it. He did it unknowingly. He was right to do so officially. It was doing that to teach the owner a lesson. The answer is he did it unknowingly. He opened the letter in error. Now, it was wrong, but he intended to do it. He didn't intend to do it. That is why it is in error. He was right to do so officially, no. It was done in order to teach, no, but he did it unknowingly. Question number 14. Everyone but Nick was late to the meeting. Everyone. So I would like, in this kind of sentence, I want to teach us a trick. Why not remove the intervening conjunction and the noun, but and Nick? And what do we have? We have everyone was late to the meeting. That means everybody came late. Nick was the only one exempted from that list, which means, so you can see now that we have arrived at our answer, which means that everyone, only Nick did not, no, only Nick came in time. Everyone except Nick came in time is wrong. Everyone, including Nick, did not come in time wrong. Only Nick did not come in time wrong, but only Nick came in time. Thank you. So now question number 15, they must have been working for hours by now. They must have been working for hours by now. So we can see that it is the auxiliary verb must. Like in our first question on the JAMB, we can see the importance of shall, the auxiliary verb shall, in the interpretation of the question, in the application of our critical thinking skill. Now, another one has come again, the use of must. What is the function of must? What is the attitudinal function of must? It shows obligation. So they must have been working for hours by now. It also shows certainty. Must equally shows certainty, not only obligation, but certainty. So when we look at the context of the question, we now look at it critically. What exactly is this auxiliary verb doing in this sentence? So what is the interpretation? Do we have to go on working? No, they have certainly worked continuously for hours. B, certainly. Now, number 16. Mrs. Ahmed made the promise with her tongue in cheek. Isn't this a bonus mark for us? in our attempt at those WAEC questions, we saw tongue in cheek. Now it is resurfacing. Tongue in cheek has the same meaning. When somebody is not saying something serious, it is intended to be a joke. That is tongue in cheek. A, she should not be taken seriously. She was shy. She could not be heard. She should not be believed because of the special way she made a promise. Now, she should not be believed would have been the answer if not for the additional information, the adverbial clause, because of the special way she made the promise. So the answer clearly is A. She should not be taken seriously. Question number 17. The cashier attends the board meetings sparingly. So the answer is he seldom attends the meeting. He seldom attends the meeting. So the keyword in number 17 is sparingly. The keyword of B, which points us to the interpretation of sparingly, is seldom. So he doesn't attend it quite often. He doesn't attend it regularly. He doesn't attend it unwillingly. He just seldom attends the meeting. We now move to question number 18. When he was presented with a huge estimate for the project, the manager hit the roof. He became very angry. I'm sure some of us would have said, oh, he became very social. Now, this is an idiomatic expression. So I'm sure, I hope we are following the questions. Some questions are clearly in a test of idioms. The others are a test of our ability to apply our critical thinking skills by looking out for the keywords. Keywords like shall, keywords like but, Nick, keywords like sparingly, keywords like sparingly, keywords like must. So there is need for us to take cognizance of these markers. So hit the roof is clearly an idiomatic expression, which means to become very angry. Question number 19. Youths view the world through rose-colored spectacles. Youths view the world through rose-colored spectacles. Of course, you would agree with me that this is an idiomatic expression too. And of course, you will agree with me that the question is not literally saying that youths like you put on spectacles that are rose-colored. No. It simply means they view life over optimistically. Optimistically means to be very positive, to be very hopeful about life. And so that calls for the exuberance of most youths. So what is the answer? The answer it's not the look at the word with spectacles. It's not the view, it's not the see the word as serious. It's not they are happy with, of course they're happy with life, but they view life over optimistically. And finally, on our list for tonight, if the master were around, Lazarus wouldn't have died. If the master were around, Lazarus wouldn't have died. No, what is where? If. That is condition. Where? Past. Would have, let's just remove the not. Would, that shows certainty, and that shows futurity in a way. So what does the combination of these with the inclusion of not, what does it imply? It means that the master was not around. The master was not around. Lazarus actually died when the master was not around. Lazarus died even though the master was around. The master was around and Lazarus did not die. The answer is C. Lazarus actually died when the master was not around. So these are all we have for tonight on idiomatic expressions. To cap up, what have we learned tonight? We have learned that idiomatic expressions are essential, not only for our examination in WAEC, not only for our examination in JAMB, but they are equally important for our informal letter writing. Why? Because idiomatic expressions are one of the expressions we use in an informal setting for informal conversations, not official. Then we now said that idiomatic expressions have fixed meanings and they also have fixed expressions, which means they are permanent and they have to be learned and memorized. And we expressed different, we showcase different examples like we hand over the olive branch, blowing hot and cold. We talked about raining cats and dogs. We talked about talking 10 to the dozen. We talked about talking tongue in cheek. We talked about hitting the roof, and so on and so forth. So we now said again that when it comes to WAEC is very clear. When it says idiomatic expressions, it means idiomatic expression. But when it comes to JAMB, it's a mixture of idiomatic expression and a test of critical thinking, where our knowledge of certain aspects of the English language are brought to the fore to see how we can apply our theoretical knowledge of those aspects, for instance, our auxiliary verbs, to the practical application in sentences. On this note, I want to tell every student listening to us that in the event that you have questions, please do not hesitate to drop some of your questions in the comment section or reach us on Elim Tutor. Any question, we are always on hand to answer your questions on idiomatic expressions and any other aspect that you found difficult along the line as you go about your preparations for the examinations. I remain so Bumi Ili